On Monday, I'm going to be a featured presenter at the Nurturing Greatness Summit at Seton Hall University. And as I was preparing, I realized something. The same strategy that I used to prepare for this presentation is a similar strategy that you can use to prepare for your leadership interview. If you treat your leadership interview like a presentation instead of a conversation, that's when everything changes. Let's talk about it. What's going on, aspiring school leader? I am Dr. Donovan Smalls II, assistant principal, best-selling author, school leadership coach, and I help aspiring school leaders confidently land their first leadership role and lead with impact from day one. Today's topic is interview like a leader. On Monday, I will be presenting at the Nurturing Greatness Summit at Seton Hall University, and I am super excited about the opportunity to be alongside some, really impactful educational leaders who are doing tremendous work in our industry. And as I was preparing for this summit, preparing my presentation, really figuring out the direction that I wanted to go, I started to realize and make the connection between doing a presentation, structuring your presentation, and how you should be going about your leadership interview. I know you're enjoying this episode, but I want to let you know about my 4-week interview preparation coaching program called Elevate Your Impact. This program is specifically for aspiring school leaders who have an amazing resume, you're ready to lead, but you may need additional support regarding interview preparation. In my 4-week program, you will learn how to clarify and confidently communicate your leadership story, practice scenario-based interview questions with real-time coaching and targeted feedback, and participate in a full one-on-one mock leadership interview with targeted, actionable feedback. So if that's you, if you're an aspiring school leader and you know you need additional support regarding interview preparation, visit my website, donovansmalls2.com/coaching for more information, or click the link in the description to book your call with me today. In this podcast, the goal is to help you as an aspiring school leader truly understand the interview process so that you can be confident when it comes to you sitting down with an interview committee, so that you can understand the strategy behind what the questions are, what the hiring committee might be asking you, what they truly want to hear underneath their questions, right? And that's exactly why I also coach aspiring school leaders who are ready to land their first leadership role. And so I started thinking about this concept, and here's the mistake most aspiring school leaders make when it comes to the interview process. It's treating interviews like Q&A sessions. It's not taking control of the room. And I'm not saying in an authoritative type of way, but as I was coaching a client, an aspiring school leader, a couple of days ago, we started talking about how you, as the person who is being interviewed, you have to have the skill and the understanding of how to steer the conversation in a way that highlights your strengths. See, that the interview committee is going to ask you whatever it is that they want to ask you. And I also teach a framework in terms of how the questions are most likely going to be structured in your interview. But when you understand that framework, and then you also understand your strengths, you have a better opportunity to steer that conversation or that interview in the way that highlights who you are, your strengths, so that the interview committee can truly see who you are and how you will lead. Another mistake that aspiring school leaders make is they wait for a question. They respond and they hope it sounds good. But a leadership interview is not a Q&A session. It is truly a 30-minute or however long the interview lasts, but it is a leadership presentation. See, when I prepare for this summit presentation, I'm thinking about the end in mind. I'm not thinking about what questions people are going to ask me. Well, yes, I am structuring things in a way that I'm thinking about the audience and what it is that they need. What are they going to get out of the conversation? What questions are they going to ask me so that I can anticipate what my response will be? I'm thinking, what outcome do I want to create in this room? That's the shift. See, in your leadership interview, you want to be thinking about what is the outcome. I'm not saying the overall outcome of you getting the job, right? Obviously, that's the end result of what you truly want, right? You want to get hired. But who is it that you want to be in that interview? How are you going to show up in that interview? Your leadership disposition is extremely important. How you are showing up, how you are responding. There is a dance that you have to be able to do that comes across as confident but not cocky, right? Comes across as confident but not arrogant, right? There's a thin line between that. And as you begin to get feedback through coaching, through mentorship, and you start to go through some of those experience-based questions, some of those scenario-based questions, which is actually what I do with my clients, is you'll start to get that practice and notice, okay, am I rambling? Am I spending a little bit too much time on this question, right? Did I tell a little bit too much of my leadership story when I need to hone that and rein that in a little bit, right? It's the practice that actually is going to prepare you. Just like you would practice for your presentation, you also need to be strategic in your practice for your leadership interview. That's the shift. If you want to interview like a leader, you must think also like a presenter. Not a responder, but a presenter. You own the room in a humble way, right? Again, there's that dance. You have to show up like you are a leader, but also somebody that's humble, that's able to be on a team, right? So strategy number one, I want to talk to you about a few strategies as it relates to the connection between you presenting information, but also you being somebody that's being interviewed to land your first leadership role. And number one is outcome-focused answers. So when you receive a question from the interview committee, you want to be able to highlight the outcome that you have already been able to experience, whether that's in the classroom or hopefully you have different experiences outside of your teaching experience that you can speak to. Maybe you're a department chair. Maybe you're also a team leader, right? Maybe you lead a committee. Those are the areas where people want to hear, not necessarily your teaching experience, right? We could see you have 15 years of teaching experience, but what leadership experience do you have that you can convey to the interview committee? So when I build this presentation that I will be presenting on Monday, I start with the outcome. What do I want people to leave believing, right? Is there a shift in mindset that I want to make? And truly, the topic that I'm going to be speaking about on Monday is about transforming culture, right? Through the lens of coaching and feedback. And the reason why I chose this topic is because as I begin to do my own research, as I begin to really speak with teachers about what is it that truly transforms culture. Yes, a lot of times we talk about inclusivity. We talk about a sense of belonging, and all those things matter. But there is an aspect of transforming school culture that we don't often talk about, right? And that is what? Coaching and feedback. And what I mean by feedback, I would assume that you're thinking about me as a leader giving, me as a leader giving feedback to the teacher. But it's also creating levels of feedback, right? Creating a feedback loop to every system that I have in place as a leader to be able to receive feedback. See, many times as leaders, we are constantly giving feedback, but we don't have feedback loops to receive it. There is an unwritten level there's an unwritten power dynamic that exists between teachers and leaders. And you have to be able to steward that properly as a leader. You can't abuse it. You have to steward it, right? And what I mean by steward it, that means that you cannot assume that just because you said you have an open door policy that people are going to actually come in when they have an issue, right? Have you created a level of understanding, a level of relationship so people truly understand, yes, you do have an open door policy, not just because you said it, but because you open up the lines of communication. You invite people in when it comes to decision making. That's the key. Again, we have to acknowledge the power dynamic that does exist and then go out of our way sometimes to bring people in, invite people in into the environment so they can see that you actually mean what you say. That is an underrated skill, and I think a reframing as a leader that we truly need to think about, right? So again, strategy number 1 was outcome-focused answers. Strategy number 2 is a structured flow. So every strong presentation has structure. It has an opening, it has a problem, a strategy, evidence, impact, and it also has a closing, right? You might even introduce some statistics. So you have the research-based aspect to your presentation. Now, you might not have research-based aspects to your interview process when you are interviewing with an interview committee, right? But you can talk anecdotally about like what you've done in your classroom to gain some concrete evidence in terms of how you've changed your teaching practice to improve student achievement, right? So all things are connected, and I want you to start thinking differently about your interview process. Structure creates clarity. Clarity creates confidence. Your interview answers need structure, just like your presentations. Instead of rambling, I want you to think about following this flow. So when you receive a question from the interview committee, I want you to really take in the situation. Communicate what your action was or what your action would be. Think about the impact that it will have on the specific group of people who you are, taking up this situation with, or how to solve this situation. Think about the impact and who it will impact. And think about a leadership insight, right? Like, what did you learn from this situation? So for example, you might get a question about discipline, and you might talk about how in your particular role, you noticed that discipline referrals were rising. And maybe you implemented restorative protocols and you trained staff, and you noticed that referrals dropped significantly. And then you talk about what you learned, which may be you learn that culture shifts when adults are aligned. So you created a structure and an alignment that allowed people to truly understand what are the consequences that are in place, what are the feedback loops that we have so that teachers are aware of specific incidences, right? Families are aware of what is going on, and you notice that referrals decreased. These are the things that I need you to think about in terms of structure in your interview. Do not just go into an interview thinking that you are going to magically be able to answer questions without having a level of structure. Just like how you would prepare for a presentation, I want you to also give that same level of effort and energy and structure to your interview. And lastly, I want you to have an authority mindset. Again, not cockiness, but confidence. When I step into that summit on Monday, I'm not asking for permission to be there, but I'm also not showing up arrogantly either. I'm not shrinking. I'm not apologizing. I'm leading. And that's how you must also enter your interview. Authority mindset sounds like I led, I implemented, I analyzed, I decided. It doesn't sound like I just helped with, I was kind of involved in, I tried to, right? Those are concepts that might make you sound a little bit unsure of yourself and of your leadership. Now, I'm not saying that you need to sound perfect, because no one does, but you do need to show up with a level of confidence in who you are. And guess how that confidence is developed? It's developed through practice. It is developed by being intentional about receiving the level of coaching and mentorship that you need to help take you to the next level. So today we talked about 3 strategies regarding the connection between doing a presentation and also your interview process. Number one was outcome-focused answers. Number 2 structured flow. And then strategy number 3 was have an authority mindset. And again, you want to come off confident, not cocky. You want to have a level of authority, but also show that you can be a team player. You want to be a leader. Leaders have a certain disposition. I want you to study some of the greatest leaders that you look up to, regardless of industry, right? It might be sports. You might look at Michael Jordan as somebody who is an amazing leader in your eyes. You might look at Serena Williams as an amazing leader in your eyes, Simone Biles, whoever the case is, whoever that individual is. And I want you to think about when they are in their element, the level of confidence that they show up with. But how do they develop that level of confidence? It is through repetition. So you have to be able to practice in terms of how you're going to structure your interview responses. What is a framework that you might implement? And that's exactly how I help aspiring school leaders in terms of their preparation for their interviews. So if that's you, if you know that you are ready to be a school leader for the following school year, you know that you are preparing for interview season, and you want to be 100% ready to go into that interview confident. You want to be able to practice those scenario-based questions, those experience-based questions, your leadership story, all those things. Reach out. Let's have a conversation to talk about if coaching might be right for you. Here's the thing. Sometimes coaching is all we need to help us get to the next level, because it'll create a level of clarity for you to understand who you are as a leader and how to communicate that. And if that's you, again, reach out, let's have this conversation, and let's see how we can work together so that you are totally prepared, confident in who you are to land your first leadership role. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, I hope you have a great week of teaching, leading, and learning. Take care.